thank you for joining us today. We're going to have a legendary DeFi panel here. We have some all-stars in the space. They're going to introduce themselves in a moment. My name is Alonzo. I work at Epoch blockchain, and we run validators on various blockchains. Right now, we're very focused on the Cardano ecosystem. And I'm also a co-founder of Cardano Over Coffee, where we interview founders. So we're going to jump into it, and why don't you kick us off, Koala?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Koala with Alchemix. I'm the COO. We are, in short, a self-repaying loans protocol. So we're aiming to be the safest way in crypto to get a bit of leverage and borrow against your crypto.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Kazemian. I'm the founder of Frax, and Frax is issuing the first Genius-compliant stablecoin at Frax USD. And so a lot of you guys probably have heard the Genius bill that passed about 2.5 weeks ago legalizes stablecoins for banks, payments, and everything, and we're issuing the first one.
Hi, everybody. I am Jonathan Thomas, and I am the founder of Blueberry, and we tokenize different yield strategies, as well as try and make DeFi and all of finance a little bit easier for the average user.
Hi, everybody. I'm Korn. I'm from Yearn. I do all of the BD and partnership integrations for us. I've been working for Yearn for about 4 years now, and we are a DeFi yield farming project. So users deposit their funds into a Yearn vault. All of those funds go into a bunch of different lending markets, and we get supply-side yield, and then we send it all back to the users. Today, we have about $650 million in Yearn vaults.
All right. So our first questions today actually are going to go to the audience. We want to get to know you better. So my first question for you, raise your hand if you have owned a meme coin.
There we go.
That's a memes. All right.
Me too.
Oh wait, we should have all raised our hands. What about who has bought an NFT before? Okay, we still got some. What about DeFi? Who here is using DeFi? Wow, that's more than NFTs.
That's surprising, actually.
That is surprising. Well, I think you guys are at the right panel. And to get things started, I'm going to ask some of our panelists to talk a little bit about their protocol and just give us an overview of, what I know you started, Korn, going into Yearn, which is great. So I don't know if any of you three want to maybe talk a little bit about your protocol and, for the layman out there.
Sure, yeah. So Frax has actually been around for a while in the DeFi space, but our flagship product is actually very new. It's called Frax USD, which is a fully compliant and soon to be federally licensed stablecoin pegged to the US dollar. And I think the most important law that's probably been passed in the last few years with anything related to crypto is the Genius Act. And so a lot of people here in the audience probably know that the Genius Act actually makes certain type of stablecoin legally acceptable as payments and federally audited. And so we're issuing the first one, and that's completely Genius compatible. So it is called Frax USD. And fun fact, actually was in DC back in March, giving feedback and helping write one of the drafts. In fact, with some of the DC-based Stand With Crypto people and other foundations like Blockchain Association and everything. So we had a presence in kind of crafting this bill. And I think the most important thing about it is that everyone on the stage here that has like DeFi protocols and everything needs a safe digital dollar that's actually compliant, and the actual government that issues the US dollar unit, right? The USA actually says this thing is a dollar. This thing actually can be accepted for payments. This thing can actually be accepted in banks. And the more of those stablecoins that the foundational DeFi platforms are built on top of, I think that's when everyone wins, because you can build riskier but better things on top without the foundation being shaky.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, and I think related to that, like we saw, almost everyone here has bought a meme coin. Not so many people here have used DeFi. We need to make crypto easy to use. That's why people buy meme coins. They're very easy. And so adding safety through compliance, and then with Alchemix, there are a lot of ways to borrow against your crypto in DeFi. and in crypto in general. A lot of them are very dangerous. You can very easily get liquidated, end up paying insane interest rates, all of that. So with Alchemix, we've really tried to create a very friendly leverage experience where you cannot get liquidated. You pay us a % of your yield rather than an interest rate, so we're never going to charge you more than you make. And that's really what we're trying to do with Alchemix, is create a product that's actually simple to use, just like meme coins are very simple to do. Because ultimately, DeFi is actually beneficial for people to use. Meme coins, you're generally going to lose money. Maybe you find a community. That's good, I guess. But if you make the beneficial things easy to use, then you can actually start to create some good in the world through crypto rather than just rampant speculation. So.
Great.
Yeah, and then as Koala just mentioned, how you're using your loan to be able to yield farm.
Raise your bike.
Okay. As Koala was mentioning, where it's like you're able to yield farm with your loan that you take out. So for us at Blueberry, it's being able to create more sophisticated yield strategies that might be a pretty complex thing where a market maker or a high frequency trading firm is going to be putting on, and being able to have one-click access for the average user to be able to earn the same yields as that, and then being able to utilize that in more complex strategies, or being able to just be passive with your investment and be able to understand how much money did I put in, how much money am I getting out of it, and then also what are the risks associated with it. So trying to be able to bring a level of transparency into it, as well as just trying to make it a little bit more user-friendly is the real goal for Blueberry. Building out the DeFi terminal, as we like to call it. So in TradFi right now, you have a Bloomberg terminal that a lot of financiers are going to be using, and we're trying to build something that's a little bit more focused on the everyday user first.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that gives you guys a good primer on who we're talking to. So let's talk about something that maybe people have a tough time understanding about your protocol, or what's a misconception that you often find in your communities. Who wants to take it first? Go ahead, Karn.
So Yearn has always had this problem where what we do is very safe. And our APYs, our yields, right now around like stables are around 10%, which is still a lot higher than you get in traditional finance. But in crypto, people are looking for a number way higher than that. And we've always been misunderstood for that reason. And we've always stuck to our guns and just stayed executing really safe strategies. We always also had this issue trying to get people to come over from the traditional world. They might think crypto is really risk on, and it was for a period of time, but it's getting safer. And I think we kind of had this, we were trying to reach an audience of people who were risk on, but they were inside traditional finance and not coming into crypto, but we had a really safe product. But through the past 5 years, and Yearn started 5 years ago, we were one of the first DeFi projects out there. We're slowly starting to see this new audience of people coming in who are moderate. They're moderately risk tolerant. They want to get that 10% yield compared to the 4% they're getting at their bank, but they're not looking for the 1,000x. And for the past 3 years, that was the crypto audience, that person looking to make millions. So I think it's going to still be a long road for Yearn, getting back to billions of dollars of TVL, but we're going to stick to our traditions and what we're most comfortable with.
Yeah, I think one, not misconception, but things that people probably have a question about, not just about Frax, but also the recent stablecoin legislation and things, is how does this make a difference, right? There's a new law about stablecoins. How does it actually work? You already probably use USDC. Maybe some people use USDT. Frax USD, ours is already on many chains. People use it. What's the difference, right? And so I think the important thing is actually to highlight this is actually a huge, huge thing, even though you can't really see it. The Genius Act actually essentially makes certain types of stablecoins, the ones that custody almost essentially risk-free assets like treasury bills and money market fund securities, in qualified custodians, which are entities like BlackRock, which we work with, Fidelity, WisdomTree, that are SEC-registered entities. If you issue a stablecoin that has these assets backed in a qualified custodian and the federal government audits these assets, just like they do a bank. They go to the bank regulators, go and check that the bank actually has what they say they do. Then you get a Genius payment stablecoin license, right? And then that actually makes your stablecoin legally acceptable to be used as bank settlement media or in payments and things like that. And so we're able to actually start talking to new places and banks and everyone that's actually interested to participate in DeFi and stablecoins with using these new payment stablecoins that are Genius compliant. And that is a huge difference. So people might not be able to see it because they're not having those conversations. But as Korn was saying, there needs to be a new audience, right? Whether from the user level or from the institutional level. And this is actually a huge, huge shift that happened 2.5 weeks ago. And a lot of these things will be coming basically in early next year.
I have a question, because I know you worked on the Genius Act so much. Can they be yield bearing?
So the stablecoin itself cannot be yield bearing. It has to be a legal digital dollar. And so for the reason for that is that there has to be a base unit that is counted as a Genius stablecoin for the definition. I actually helped write part of that definition specifically. So like this part is actually super important because if there was yield-bearing stablecoins that were like legal tender and non-yield-bearing stablecoins, then you don't know which ones you can like lend in Aave. And then if you need a base unit that's $1, so that debt can be denominated in like regulated stablecoins, and you can know in many places that this is just $1. Now, the other important thing is the yield clause, and I think that's actually a common misconception too, which is you can pay rewards for holding these things in specific areas. So the people actually before us, it was like Coinbase and Stand With Crypto. Coinbase itself has a USDC earn program, right? If some of you guys might have used it, you hold USDC on Coinbase, they give you 4.1% yield. That is because it is a partnership and not an issuer paid interest rate. And so Frax can, through a fintech app or even a fintech app that we build, but that is not just you holding Frax USD from the issuer, can pay rewards and comply with the Genius Act, but there's no legal right to interest or rewards by holding a Genius compliant stablecoin.
Awesome. I think that's a great segue to the next part, which is what role should regulation play in DeFi, right? You're talking about stablecoins, which are obviously a critical part of the DeFi ecosystem, but DeFi is also bigger than stablecoins. So,
yeah, I'll start on that one, and obviously Sam will have a lot to add to that one too. But in my opinion, crypto gives us this amazing opportunity to codify financial rules into a blockchain like Ethereum, any blockchain really. And so when you're designing a crypto project, a protocol, a product, whatever you're doing, step one is like, whatever you want to do, can you just entirely enshrine it into Ethereum? And then that way the rules are there. You don't need legal regulations there because all the rules are on the blockchain. From there, a lot of projects can't be entirely just enshrined on Ethereum, and you need to have something like a DAO that governs it. You need to have a money manager who's managing, like, making decisions around these protocols. That's where I think you need regulation, because otherwise you end up with people with a lot of power over other people's money with no regulation. So regulation is good when you're regulating someone who's controlling someone else's money. Regulation is bad when you're trying to regulate code that already does the regulation just by nature of being immutable code on the blockchain.
Does anyone want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. And the other big thing too about regulation is it really gives like the lay of the lands, being able to figure out now these are the guardrails that you as a developer are able to think about, and then being able to build products that are either 100% compliant or being able to get a little bit creative with the way that you're doing it. and it just allows you to know what is the right way to move forward, as well as what way is a lot of the traditional institutional money comfortable playing with. So then you're able to know just a little bit more of a direction on how to build out a product, as well as you being able to start getting a little bit more creative with how everything is being structured, because you're able to think about it as building with Legos. And everything that we're doing is having a money Lego and being able to see how does it fit in with another piece, and just being able to continuously build on top of that.
I'm actually a pretty light touch regulation person myself, to be honest, even though I'm probably the one up here that's been to DC the most. Like for real, like I think the way that I would think about it is there's very few things that actually require regulation, and like one of those things is what is legally a dollar if you're going to use it on the blockchain, because is it a dollar that's tokenized like this and that? But outside of that, and maybe what is a security in terms of like what actually is the actual definition that applies to digital assets? And to be honest, my opinion is that's it. That's enough. I'm not a pro more regulation person. I'm pretty libertarian minded, but it requires some definitions for everything else to work underneath it. Otherwise, it's absolute chaos if you don't know what a real legal stablecoin is, what a real dollar is, which one is built on top of what, and these kind of things. But there's not that many things you need to know, to be honest, in my opinion.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I like the enshrining, from the L1. I think that's a nice way to think about it, and definitely agree with a lot of your points, Sam. But let's talk a little bit about user adoption challenges. Who's facing one today, and how are you solving it? What's the bottleneck? Corn, you want to start?
Yeah, I can take this one. We are tasked with doing due diligence on all of these different sources of yield. And for a long time, when we first started doing this, there was no standardization of tokenization. There was no vault standard, and we did end up coming up with that. It's called the 4626 vault standard. And that has led us to having less development, being quicker to market, and just being able to interact more safely with all these different sources of yield. But we have users requesting us to work with like non-4626 compliant projects, or projects that are just doing risky things. And I think one of the misconceptions about Yearn is when we decline to make a strategy or like tap into a source of yield, it's not because we're like short on resources, or it's because we don't get along with that project. It's because we have a risk framework that has to, like all these different prerequisites have to be met. It has to be liquid all the time. It has to be able to take big deposits with little slippage. And there's a reason why we're not building a strategy for you. It has nothing to do with anything else other than it being not safe. And that has been kind of a hurdle for us over the past few years, because we're stuck only working with like the big projects out there, like the big lending markets out there, like Aave, Compound, Frax Lend, Morpho. We have sources of yield for all of those, but the newer ones, the ones that are on the bleeding edge, the ones that are giving away their like points, tokens, and stuff like that, we're not able to use those. And we have lost out on a lot of deposits because of that, but we're still around, and the lights are still on, and the user funds are still safe. So that's what's most important to us.
Yeah, and I guess similar to what you said before, Alchemix also, like Yearn, focuses on pretty safe yield strategies, pretty good yield. And I think up until recently, just to like use crypto and use DeFi in the first place, you had to do a lot of really weird stuff and figure out take all these steps, 20 steps to like get your money into Coinbase, then onto the blockchain, write down your private keys, do all of this stuff. And once you do that, you're like, wait, I did all of that just to earn 10% yield. Whereas you're like, I want my 100x. I want this was hard. I want something for it. Now it's a lot easier to use crypto, so we're finding that people are more willing to come on chain for those safer use cases, just because before it was just whoever was on chain was by nature kind of degenerate because they were the only ones who figured out how to get there in the first place. Now a lot more people are figuring out how to get on chain, so there are just a lot more people out there who are just willing to be on chain and feel safe in doing so. and will take those better yields than their bank, but they're not chasing these crazy yields. And so it's been hard for us to attract those safer users in the past as a safer protocol, but we're finding that's resonating with a lot more people now.
Got it. So, both of you talked a little about tokens, and to kind of shift a little bit, I want to talk about L2s, maybe alternative chains. How important are these to your growth, and how do you maybe approach that, or how do you prioritize them, or do you prioritize them at all?
Yeah, so I think this is actually pretty relevant to stablecoins because there's probably like the one primitive that every new network needs is a dollar, and then things can be built around it, and everything like lending markets like yield and things like that. And so my opinion has always been that the way that people come and go between all these different chains, which are growing more and more every week, there's like another L1 or L2 that's launched, is a stablecoin that's trustable and a mint and burn between all the chains by the issuer. So if you guys are familiar with Circle, they have this thing called CCTP. Frax USD has the Frax Mesh. It's our connection and messaging system between everything, and you can go one-to-one between Solana, L2s, and everything in seconds. I think that's actually been a very powerful thing for us as a stablecoin issuer as a strategy, because once you're natively on a certain chain and someone can take their money in dollars and go one-to-one in seconds to Solana, go to Abstract Chain, for example, or Arbitrum or Ethereum, you're actually providing a value for someone that actually needs it, which is take value between different ledgers. And if you think about it, that actually kind of comes with the banking system. If you wire money from one bank to another, the other bank doesn't say, oh, this is 0.9987 on the dollar because that bank is risky, right? They all just take it as one-to-one, right? And so the way that I think of all these chains is they're all different ledgers, essentially, decentralized ones, and there needs to be a way to actually take dollars and wire them, so to speak, between each other. And so our strategy at Frax has been to connect as many of these chains in native ways with our messaging system as possible. And yesterday we actually hit the all-time high of like cross-chain messaging that we've ever validated at Frax. So
nice. Love to see it, hitting milestones. Does anyone else want to talk about this?
Yeah, Yearn always focused on the Ethereum ecosystem, and for a period of time, people were paying hundreds of dollars in gas costs to go and do simple movements. And it was actually costing us quite a bit too, because whenever we launch a vault or whenever we do a harvest, that is a gas fee that we have to pay. So being on qualified layer 2s that have good liquidity, where we can make viable strategies, is really important to us, and it's something we're always looking for. We just started working with one called Katana, and it is a native yield chain. What that means is when you bridge over, all of the funds that are held up in that bridge are yield bearing. They're earning yield, and all of that yield gets ported onto the layer 2 to the areas of that are going to create the most network effects for the chain. So the whole idea of this is to have this system that is constantly generating yield to incrementally grow the chain and the chain's liquidity over time. So I thought that was pretty novel, and it's got a bunch of different implementations of Yearn vaults, and that's the kind of innovation we're looking for with layer 2s.
Awesome. So we got one question left. I want to know, out of all the use cases that DeFi has not nailed down perfectly, which one is your company or protocol best positioned to accomplish?
I can start quick. I've touched on it already, but I think a lot of DeFi focuses on very degenerate use cases and requiring a lot of active management and monitoring. And borrowing against your assets is a tool that's been available to not everyone for a very long time. And I think we've managed to find a way to let people borrow against their assets, but also be able to sleep at night when doing that.
So I think for us, it's what we can bring to DeFi, and so it's legal payments. And so like we work with Stripe and Bridge, and Stripe is a huge payment processor, and so Frax USD can be integrated in the Stripe API and the Bridge system. And so one of the main things is, can we bring people's digital dollars that they use in DeFi to actually just at checkout on Shopify websites or like bank deposits and things like that. And imagine you can just seamlessly do that. You can put it in Yearn or Alchemix or anywhere, and then you can take it out and then just check out at Shopify or your favorite website. And so that's actually, I think, the area that Frax is doing with Frax USD that I think is the most impactful.
Yeah, and I would say for Blueberry, it's focusing on more of the complex, difficult strategies that exist, and then being able to present it to the user in a very easy to digest and be able to understand what they're actually earning, and then just having it as user as friendly as possible and as close to a one-click experience that we can really drive home to everybody. That's a big thing for us.
The thing I think we're struggling to do today in DeFi is actually something that we started out by doing very well. We were decentralized and we were immutable. And I think these days there are a lot of DeFi projects out there who have full control over user funds and are doing whatever they want to do with them. And that could be a problem in the future. And our strategy for that, dealing with that right now, is to wait it out and wait for them to mess up. Because we know that as long as we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to be there when those users need a safe place to be. So
I love that. Yeah, being patient, try to survive, keep thriving. I love it.
Don't give in to what the market and what the users want you to do when you know it's not right.
I love it. Well, those are all the questions that we have. So let's give our awesome DeFi panelists a quick round of applause. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Enjoying Rare Evo? Then lock in your spot for next year right now. Rare Evo 2026 is already in the works, and it's going to be even bigger. More chains, more builders, more connections. Tickets are live. Go to rareevo.io/2026 to grab your early access pricing before it's gone. Don't wait. Be first. Be part of what's next. We'll see you at Rare Evo 2026.